Akaash Singh, I think I said that right. Comedian, most known for being a co host on a popular podcast and doing stand up comedy, has officially joined the likes of Adam 22, Will Smith, and Travis Hunter as recipients of Simp of the Year. My GOAT, my personal GOAT, Will won it in 2022 when he slapped Chris Rock over August Alsina's Shorty. Adam 22 won it when he passionately let his wife take BBC in 2023, and Travis Hunter clutched it last minute in 2024. He almost would have won it again in 2025 on some back-to-back type shit if Akash didn't clutch last minute. Akash is one of those individuals who was a loser growing up but became successful in his 30s. A very common occurrence. Most men come to, their physical peak typically, between, the ages of 25 and 30, and most men don't even really start making any type of moves financially, don't really get any pay worth mentioning until like 30 to like 35. I learned this all from ChatGPT, by the way, so I could be bullshitting. I'm not even gonna lie to you, but it sounds good. So, but imagine being a 30-year-old virgin, but you start getting some motion, appearing on MTV shows, and bitches are now looking your way. It's finally your time to shine, and you decide to wife up a 20-year-old thought. Couldn't be me. Now, me personally, though, I don't get mad at, these 30, 40, 50-year-old niggas who start having it their way and, start fucking with the 20-year-olds. Especially in Akash case. Them bitches was throwing him no pussy, but now he gotta be guilt tripped into messing with, the washed up single mothers of the world, or the over 30-year-olds coming off of a decade long whore phase. Nigga didn't do all that hard work, all that grinding to mess with the same women who only want him because he's having motion now. And they're finally tired of being mistreated by, the bad boys. So I'm not criticizing Akash for dating a 20-year-old, but dating a whore 20-year-old is unacceptable. Shorty in college getting ran through by Brad and his boys while being indoctrinated by feminist propaganda. I mean, he was better off wifing a woman his age who at least got bored of being a whore and wanted to, at least quit instead of, one who was just getting started, one who's still in love with the game. Akash wife is missing the game. She's missing the sport that she used to love back in college. I guess Shorty sold Akash a lie that she was a virgin. So Akash went on all these podcasts and interviews talking about wifing a virgin and talking, on relationships and, other people's relationship. This is Akash's number one problem, in my opinion. But he took a huge L. Niggas out here are siding with Fresh and Fit of all people. In red pill niggas in general. If you don't know who Fresh and Fit are, they're some of the most controversial niggas ever, and for good reason. For a few reasons, actually. Mostly because they're a part of a community known as the red pill community, which a lot of people find corny because they kind of are. But what makes Fresh and Fit even more controversial than other red pill content creators is their political beliefs and racial comments. Fresh and Fit will go on Akash's podcast Fragrant, where the very first thing they were pressed about is their preference or lack of preference for black women, to be specific. Akash, some random idiot decides to get really pressed about the fact that Fresh and Fit don't like to date black women. I wouldn't agree with their opinion on black women, but Akashi's perspective is kind of weird to me, or this ideal that women of your race or ethnicity is a reflection on you and you should date within your race. If that's the case, Akash is not, his wife is not really reflecting well on him, in my opinion. He even flexes that he's only ever dated Indian women. But that's kind of an easy thing to do when you've only ever dated one person your entire life. This podcast took place in 2022, and everyone, was pretty much on Akasha's side. Again, most people aren't fans of Fresh and Fit. You read the comments from, you read the comments now, everyone's kind of clowning Akash. But if you go back, 3 years and whatnot, everyone was on Akasha's side. Honestly, watching the podcast to me, this particular podcast episode is so uninteresting to me. It's like a whole conversation on why they don't prefer black women. Excuse me if I don't care that much as a black man why Fresh and Fit don't like to date black women. It's like going to Thanksgiving and being mad someone doesn't eat mac and cheese. Like, how am I supposed to be mad at that, bro? Unfortunately for Akash, the internet is forever. What you say on the internet can't be taken back. And Akash's wife had this brilliant idea on starting her own podcast. Why Akash would allow this is beyond me. 3 years later, a commentary channel decides to put together a compilation of all the crazy things she said, ranging from jokes about how Akash's money is their money and her money is hers, which isn't really a joke because that's exactly how she feels. Which, I don't think necessarily is an issue if it wasn't for the fact that she doesn't do anything else. She doesn't cook or clean or nothing. She'd also joke about how hot her co-host husband is and having an orgy with them. Again, like the word joking is doing a lot of heavy lifting. And her defense for this, which we'll get to, is pretty hilarious. The level of gaslighting. I can at least appreciate it. Byron from Fresh and Fit would catch wind of this. Bro has been waiting 3 years to get back, and he took the opportunity. The story will blow, and if you're terminally online and you understand what happens next, people search through all her content and all her past comments and clips are uncovered. This went viral because the whole basis of the Fragrant episode with Fresh and Fit is based on the ideal that Fresh and Fit think modern women have unrealistic expectations and would ditch their husbands to party with Drake. And Akash and Schultz, Andrew Schultz, are trying to convince them as married men that a lot of women aren't like that and they're just hanging around the wrong crowd. So when people find out that Akash's virgin wife is just like the women Fresh and Fit described, it kind of helps prove they're at least not 100% wrong. At least in this case, Akasha's wife would respond, in my opinion, in the dumbest way, writing all of her comments as jokes and calling the situation a double standard since Akash likes to joke about her and their relationship all the time. But what she doesn't understand is that Akash's jokes consist of him talking about how unattractive he is and how attractive she is and how, she's dating or how he's dating up and she's dating down. Her jokes consist of her talking about how her co-host husband is as good, if not better than her husband, how Akash smells, all these crazy stuff, popping pussy in college. Your average non-idiot can tell the difference. She's out here talking about popping pussy for frat white boys while Akash is talking about only dating Indian women. There's only lights gasoline where it only makes it go more viral, but she's not smart enough to realize this. Honestly, I don't really care about the clips of her clearly not being some virgin. I wouldn't wife her, but that's his prerogative. But I think the most telling clips are the ones of her ducking his kisses, which is a clear sign someone isn't really feeling you. She will respond to those clips defending herself, saying she's just not a fan of PDA, which I can understand as I am also not a fan of PDA. But I wouldn't duck kisses from my wife, especially if she just got on her knees and gave me a ring. And excuse me if I don't really believe the woman who gets on a podcast and talks about popping pussy in a frat house and getting her asshole fingered and wanting to have an orgy is really all that shy about PDA. It's so bad the entire fragrance subreddit done turned into roasting Akash and posting crazy clips of his wife. How do we even start to defend this, even in the context of a joke? Again, this is the perfect example of why body count does matter. No matter what some of these idiots say, in horror culture and whatnot, and the rise of hedonism, all this is just ruined dating for those who are actually looking for a wife or a husband.
But you know what's funny? I just want to say this as well, right? For everybody that has this whole idea of like the virginity is so important, it's so important. A lot of these people that get into their relationships with somebody, they're both virgins or one of the people is a virgin. What I often see happen as years go on is they want to find out what's going on with these white boy like they want to find out what's going. They want to try some different dick.
It's always funny to me when people say stuff like this because who do you think has more regret? The person who settled down early, married the love of their life, their soulmate, and went and had a family, or the person in their like 40s who's still alone, can't find anyone because no one really wants them. But they had all the fun. They went through their horror phase in their 20s and whatnot, carried it into their 30s, and now they got to that age in the love where they want to settle down and have a family and be loved. Who do you think has more regrets? The person who's sitting there in their 40s who fumbled the love of their life early on and who people won't take serious anymore because they went too crazy during their horror phase, or the person who settled down and had a family and is maybe a little bit still kind of curious about being with other men, which is normal. Like, life is about regrets. I wouldn't sit there and say person who's happily married has regrets about not going through a whole phase or whatnot, but life is kind of about regrets. Like, if you sit there are like consequences to going through a whole phase. Maybe you have a child with someone who you shouldn't have had a child with, who is making your life more problematic and is making it harder for you to find the love of your life. Maybe you sat there and you caught an STD. Like, there's so many consequences to like having a whole phase, which we need to acknowledge. There's a very little consequence to sitting there and falling in love early, besides maybe you fell in love with the wrong person or whatnot, or maybe you guys fall out of love or whatever. But it's like the person who is happily married isn't having these regrets.
Right, they want to try some different whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's normal. It's human. We want to have a bit of variety. That's why the whole body count thing is so messed up, because it's like, what? You just want to both be virgins, be together. You ain't never knowing what's going on. You ain't knowing. You need to experience some chicks with 200 XP.
Another stupid point. A lot body count does matter for obvious reasons. You think a person who can't control their lust or their flesh is going to automatically learn how to do that in their 30s, 40s, or 50s or whatever? No, there's why they're saying you can't turn a hoe into a housewife. There's a reason why it exists. You can't take the hoe out of the housewife. It's just a fact. Like, they might sit there and with an individual who can't control their with their desires and whatnot, and kind of lives a hedonistic lifestyle regards to pleasure. Like, at some point they might settle down and whatnot, but what happens later down the line where they have that urge to be with someone else, or they meet someone that they're attracted to? You think it's like, I hate this idea where people, like, they think that they go through this whole phase, they get it out their system, and then they no longer have any desire to be with, now they can be monogamous. Like, that doesn't happen. You might calm down for a little bit, but eventually it's like when you try to stop beating your meat or whatnot. It's like, yeah, you can maybe do it for a week or so, you're good off of it, but then those desires eventually comes back. What you need is to have a be able to control your desires and your lust. You need some type of level of discipline. And sitting there and going through a whole phase does not give you discipline. It's a lack of discipline. And that lack of discipline you're going to carry into whatever relationship you have. It's just a matter of time before those desires come back, and you need to be able to control your lust. It's why individuals who have these type of relationships, they get cheated on. There's a story of an individual, he's married for 10 years, but he ended up getting divorced because his wife was kissing some singer on stage or whatever. It's like, again, because those desires came back up and she wasn't able to control herself. This is what happens. A long period of not controlling your desires is not going to help you control your desires. That doesn't make any sense.
That's what you need to experience, that, bro. So this whole thing of like, oh, we thank God that she was a virgin and just we have a perfect relationship, bro. You probably both roasting for some different flavors.
This is coming from an individual who's never experienced love. If you're truly, and I mean truly, in love with someone and feel that they're your soulmates, you're not going to be sitting here constantly lusting over other people. You might sit there and be able to acknowledge someone's attractive or whatnot, but you're not going to desire to be with someone else. And don't anyone dare call cap on me, because you probably just never truly been in love if you flag what I'm saying is cap. No one who is truly happily married is sitting there thinking back dang, I really wish instead of falling in love and being with the love of my life, that I spent more time being in bed with random strangers and having one night stands. That is nonsensical.
You know what I'm saying? You both roasting for a different scoop of ice cream, and you know what? Is that's not such a bad thing. So let's stop pretending like we've got these fake morals of oh, we're just virgin and we're just with my wife, bro. It's normal, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Shout out to my guy Adam, okay? Like, shout out to my guy Adam22. He's extreme on the other end, okay? Him and his wife, they're knocking down all types of different people. They seem more happy than a lot of these people.
Okay, this is pure delusion. The Adam 22 does not seem happy at all. Every time I see this man, he seems to be coping. Like, I think there's a video. I'm gonna try to find it. There's a video I think in an interview where this individual was seething.
Do you or do you not regret allowing Lena to sleep with Jason Love?
I absolutely do not regret that. I don't even know if I believe that this thing is plugged in, but
Blood, sweat, forward breathing, upper breathing. I've been testing since the 1980s.
well, okay. Maybe there's something that I don't know that I've been holding on to.
Now, obviously, this whole interview was a bit, or at least I think it is, because, it seemed like a bit to me. It seemed kind of staged. But nonetheless, how do you cope with, like, decisions you make? Or how do men cope with decisions that they made, or, depression or other stuff, negative feelings? With comedy. That's how we cope with stuff. And that's all Adam 22 has been doing about the whole entire situation. If you sit there and look at this man ever discuss anything to do with his wife sleeping with another man, he's not happy about it. He's obviously coping. We've seen interviews where Adam has stated that he was not happy at the beginning about his wife sleeping with another man. You think he automatically became happy about it? Again, I'm sitting there saying no one who sits there and has to do drugs, or has to fill in any unhappiness with sex. These are not happy individuals. Right? Adam 22 is not a happy individual. This is an individual, like, you can sit there and look at Adam 22. He is not a mentally stable individual. No one who has the type of tattoos he has, no one who, this is, Adam 22 is very open about, his drug addiction or his past drug addiction and all this stuff he's done. Like, no one who's sitting here and having to fill their life with drugs and sex is a happily individual. Like, what is Trap Lord Ross talking about? This is my individual. Like, bro, this is almost like, bro, Satan in the CIA, which is probably ran by Satan, has done a number on the world, and it's almost crazy. And let's be for real, if Akash's wife truly had the values that she pretended to have, he would be happy in his relationship. He seemed happy until all this came up. The only reason he's not happy now is because his wife wasn't what they portrayed her to be. She simply wasn't this individual who sit there and had no body counts and was this pure Indian innocent woman. Like, that was all cap. So that's why he's not happy. If she was that, though, he would be happy. She's sitting here, and this is a good example of why body count does matter, because now he's getting humiliated on the internet because his wife isn't what they said she was. She's not an individual who, in my opinion, who has zero body count. She was living that whole life, that thought life, and that's why he's not so happy right now. Let's not pretend like this this individual got married to this pure woman, and that was the issue. That wasn't the issue.
I'm not going to lie. Their relationship seems a lot more stable, a lot more happy than these weirdos that are just like, we must be virgins and we must both be, bro. You know what I'm saying? Lena getting some BBC and she looks happy as hell, right? Adam having all type of threesomes, foursomes out here with black chicks, white chicks, Asian chicks. They seem happy as hell, and I think a lot of people are just jealous.
Let me explain something to you. If you sit there and you look at Adam 22 and Lena the Plug's relationship, and you sit there and think that they look happy, or you sit there and want that, God help you. But I'm gonna sit there and explain something to you real quick. Neither of these individuals are happy in life. They're definitely not happy in their relationship, because here's what's probably happening, because we've seen it happen with Destiny. These are two individuals who live in a hedonistic lifestyle. They're stuck in their ways. They don't want to be monogamous. They're very limited in who they can be with, because no one with any sense any value is going to want to be with Lena the Plug or Adam 22. So they're kind of have this, they're kind of stuck with each other in a way, and they have to deal with choices they've made. Adam 22 kind of explained why he kind of had to let her do the scene, because he's been doing scenes with other women. He's gotten into that lifestyle, and he's been sleeping with other women, so now he kind of has to let her do that. It's kind of the same thing with Destiny. He didn't want to stop sleeping with other women, so he kind of has to let his wife sleep with other men, and you can tell he wasn't happy about it. You can just look at the video with him and Abba from Abba and Preach, where he's dancing with his wife. You can sit there and you can see it in his face that he's not, you're not going to convince me that there's a man in life who is in love with a woman and they're going to be happy about them sleeping with another man. That just doesn't exist. It doesn't. You can see that what happened with Destiny's relationship. They broke up over another man. She pretty much had a whole another second boyfriend, a second husband. She was shacked up with, living with a whole nother man in a whole nother country while married. How'd that relationship end? Like, these people do not be happy. I don't know why they're trying to gaslight us to sit here and think that Adam 22 and Lena are happy. They're not. Akash still by far has a 10 times better and more happy relationship, in my opinion, than Adam and Lena. Like, this is such a crazy comparison. I don't know what is Trap Lord Ross talking about. I think live your life how you want to, but stop trying to convince people and promote propaganda that, whole phases or living a hedonistic lifestyle is conducive to being happy, or, having better relationships. Or it's not. It really isn't. And all this talk about, these people like Trap Lord Rice was saying, it's weird to want a virgin, you know, she's not even going to know what to do, blah blah blah. It all just seems very cucky to me. Like, you want another man to teach your woman how to do stuff, how to do tricks. Like, come on. Like, whatever happened to like building with a woman? Like, no one wants to build no more. Like, learn together, go on the journey together. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why do you want another man to teach your woman how to pleasure you? And also some of the stuff that other men might not like, or other men might like, you might not like. Like, what are we talking about? You want to? That's so, like, the logic is so ridiculous to me, and very cucky. But again, this is a generation that has the most accessible amount of porn ever. So when once you sit here and you constantly are watching other men be with women while you fantasize about them being with that woman, it only makes sense that a lot of these men are kind of cucky. And he's shouting out Adam 22. Like, I don't know. It's not like Adam. It seems like Trap Lord Ross is kind of on that cuck type shit. But it is what it is. But you know what? It doesn't seem all that bad for Akash. Not everyone's on his ass. There's one person trying his hardest to defend Akash.
Any man who tells you that his wife is a virgin, that is an autistic man.
Yeah. All right. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about. See, I love bringing my own situation because I've been through the gamut, child. I've lived a life. And also, I want to say this. Yeah, matter of fact, I am gonna talk about this, but I ain't really talking about Akash. I'm gonna talk about some real shit. Yo, everybody who I see commented on this, real talk. Everybody who I see commented on Akash. I want to say this, and I'm not saying this in defense of Akash, but I'm saying this because niggas do be having the most things to say, but they're not showing what's going on inside their house. That's some real shit.
Dumbest shit I've ever heard. So I have to sit here and put my private life in the public view to have an opinion on what other people are putting on the internet within the public view. Make that make sense. Maybe Akash wouldn't have been in this situation if he was smart enough to sit there and keep his wife off the internet. The same advice that literally everyone has been giving him. Charlemagne has been giving him. Charlemagne said he shouldn't. Charlemagne's cool with Akash. That Andrew Schultz and all. That entire podcast community. He said that Akash's wife shouldn't have had a podcast. This is what everyone's been saying. Akash is an entertainer. Why does she have a podcast? Why is she sitting here doing interviews on TikTok, putting all their business in the public for everyone to see? So of course people are going to have opinions on it, and everyone's opinions aren't going to exactly be positive. That's what happens when you have that's what happens when you post stuff on the internet. People are allowed to have opinions about what you make public. So if I sit there and have a relationship, I don't need to sit there and make it public to comment on public stuff. It's called being smart. It's called keeping my private relationship private. It's not my fault people like Akash and academics are too dumb to keep their, and you know what? I don't think, it's not like academics sit there and went out of his way to make his relationships public. Like, he got exposed on the internet and had no choice but to make that stuff public. This individual got caught up in a civil lawsuit because a woman he was in a relationship with, who would threaten his mom and do all kinds of crazy stuff. I think, did she like crack an egg on his head or something? Like, she would do all kinds of crazy stuff while he was on stream. You would do all kinds of stuff to ruin his relationship. She sat on the internet and exposed him and tried to call him out for a situation with another woman. So he had to get on stream and talk about it, which led to a whole civil lawsuit where she's accusing him of raping her. So again, what good does it come to sit there and deal with private relationships in public? This individual didn't he like get his news leak over a woman? Like, bruh, maybe I guess maybe I should have to post pictures of my woman and like how a reality show with my woman before I can comment on this. But maybe you shouldn't be with women who threaten your mom. Maybe you shouldn't keep going back crying to women to take you back who are doing nothing but ruining your life.
Everybody talks. This is soapbox talk. I don't like soapbox talk.
Wasn't that exactly what Akash was doing and why people are on his ass? Because he was soapbox talking. He was sitting there on the soapbox, sitting there talking down on Fresh and Fit. Isn't that why people are mad at him? Wasn't he the one who's sitting here on the internet talking about his relationship, about how his wife was a virgin and all this and whatnot? Isn't that why people are critical of him right now? So what's academics talking about? He doesn't like soapbox talk. Shouldn't criticize Akash then. You're on our side then. Good.
I don't like it when it got to do with race. I don't like it no way. If we don't see you with your girl, or we don't see the inner workings of how your shit is, chill out with talking about Akash.
You know what I hate the most is if people are going to sit there and act like this actually makes any type of sense. Like, bro, be for real. Are you going to sit there and try to tell me this guy is cooking? So to have an opinion on someone else's relationship on the internet, you had to sit here and put your relationship out there. So to have an opinion on M22 sitting here and letting other men crack his wife. I have to sit here and put my relationship out there. I have to have a camera on me 24/7, to make sure that my girl isn't doing the same stuff that Akash's wife is doing. Which, like, think about that for 5 seconds. Does that make sense to anyone? Does that make I have to sit there and what? I have to sit there and give you my girlfriend's Instagram account. I have to tell her to make, change it from private to public, you know, change her Facebook from private to public. Like, make it make sense. Like, it doesn't make no. If you're smart, your girlfriend is not going to be on the internet like that. That should be the goal of what we want. You should want a girlfriend or a wife who sits there and doesn't have any social media, and they do have social media, it's on private. You know how much problems that would solve for people like Akash, for people like academics, for all these idiots, fresh and fit, all these people who sit there and get caught up because they're messing with, the wrong type of women, and then now they want to get mad at us because other people are smart enough to keep whatever stuff they're doing in the bedroom. They're whatever stuff they're doing in the dark. They have enough sense to leave in the dark. They have enough sense to whatever they're going to sit here and DM hoes. They're going to do it in vanish mode. Because they have some common sense. That's what this comes off to me. It's like academics is mad because other people have common sense and they're not getting caught up like he did.
You feel me? If we don't see, if you're saying, yo, how this nigga's girl treating him, nigga, where your girl at? How come we never seen her on camera?
Because she don't like the camera gang. She's not a clout chaser. That's why. Because, I don't like to sit here and date women who sit there and wanna sit there and be on camera all day and sit there and just post on Instagram and wanna live on social media. That's probably why.
Like, respectfully, half of the niggas, and I be watching them, they talking about Akash. I don't see them with they never show their girl. And I'm not saying you gotta show your girl, but sometimes the reason why I'm saying like that matters is because sometimes the same way they're getting on Akash saying, yo, you were judging people and this was going on with you. How we know the same not going on with y'all niggas that's judging?
Yo, what does that even matter if that's true? If I sit here and I say snorting coke is bad while I'm just snorted some coke, does that change the fact that snorting coke is still bad for you? And yes, I just snorted some coke. Still bad for you. I did it to prove a point.
Let's see how you deal with your bitch. You get hitting her with a pin pan when she get out of line. Is she getting out of line? We don't know. Y'all niggas don't show y'all bitches. You feel what I'm saying? So I do think that's important because I think when people talk about Akash, they make it seem like it's so. Here's my thing. Mad niggas, yo, let me tell you this. Mad niggas be in some of these Akash situations. It's just,
yeah, it's happening a lot because people like you and Trap Lord Ross and N22, y'all sit here and try to make it socially acceptable to deal with nonsense like this or defend it. And it's not, it's something that we should speak out against and tell men that, you shouldn't be with women like this. You shouldn't deal with stuff like this because it's not conducive. It's not sitting here and being in toxic relationships or being with women who are going to sit here and have you embarrassed online, because you can sit here and say whatever you want. Akash, he might love this woman. I'm not even gonna say I know he has to love this woman. He probably does. But that doesn't change the fact that he's so obviously embarrassed by what happened. And you don't want someone, whether or not you're a man or a woman, you don't want someone, regardless of whether you love them or not, to sit there and be embarrassing you, especially if you have a whole entire career. Like, the damage he did to that podcast and to his comedy career, because he's a comedian. So he has to take these jokes. What type of mental damage is being done to this man. And, you got to deal with it because for the sake of love, because you felt you just happened to fall in love with this person. Again, this is why we have to sit here and tell men that body count does matter, okay? And in this era, you might not find you a virgin, but you don't have to also settle for a slut or a gold digger or someone who's toxic or who doesn't truly love you. Someone who's sitting here and ducking your kisses does not love you the way you need to be loved. And you should find someone who truly does love you in that manner. And you're not going to sit here and convince me that I'm wrong for feeling this way.
So maybe y'all problem is seeing it. There's mad niggas in these type of Akash situations.
Our problem is seeing it. If he kept it in his bedroom, in his private life, what will we care for? If he sits there and doesn't talk about his wife, doesn't, he's all that private and blah blah blah, then yes, why would we care? There's nothing even really, from what I can understand, it's not like she cheated on him or anything. She just said some dumb stuff, made some dumb jokes, and, revealed a little bit too much. Yes, if she doesn't sit here and go on her podcast and talk about how this Nav person is just as good, if not better than her husband, yes, we're not going to critique her. If she's not sitting here talking about whether, talking about being a virgin, but then she's sitting here talking about popping her pussy, then yes, obviously there's no criticism to be had. Even with someone like Adam 22, if he was sitting here and, his wife was getting piped out, that's not a good example because they're porn stars. It's something like Destiny was keeping his relationship, private, and they're sitting here and they're swinging, or they're in an open relationship, but they just don't tell the rest of, the internet. Why would we care? What would I care what this individual is doing in his private life? But once you bring it to the public, then yes, now we have opinions.
So when I see the whole internet coming to act like this is a one of one, there's mad girls acting like Akash's girl. Oh, I'm pretty princess. I'm passenger princess. Yo, treat me this, treat me that. There's mad chicks with that mentality. Who are the niggas they doing it to?
The thing is, a lot of those women aren't getting wifed. They're getting piped by a bunch of different niggas and then being sent to the next nigga. They're being put into rotation. They're not being wifed. Akash wifed this individual. And again, it's not my business who people want to wife or not. Like, if you put this type of stuff in, to the internet and whatnot, people are going to have their opinions. They're going to make videos. They're going to sit there and they're going to say what they're going to say. They're going to make jokes. They're going to make fun of you. They're going to make these parody songs. They're going to do, especially if you're a comedian. Like, it just is what it is. I don't know why Act is sitting here trying to get mad. I understand that Akashi is a friend. I don't know why he's sitting here trying to act brand new, like he doesn't understand why people on the internet are having opinions. It's the internet. Internet is going to internet. They're going to have an opinion. They're going to sit there and speak on stuff regardless.
What I'm saying is that a lot of these niggas talking is easy to hide. I'm not talking about Corey Holcomb, but I'm talking about the majority of people. I'm watching even other niggas who talk about it. We don't even know who your girl is. We don't have nothing. We have no representation of how you're giving it up for us to be like, yeah, that's clear. Now, I was watching a nigga today. He was talking about it. He married. You can click on his page. You can see him and his wife. Yeah, they're nothing like Akash. I get that. Cool. But like, even the Auburn preach niggas, where y'all bitches at? I want to see how y'all giving up with y'all chicks.
Don't know too much about the Auburn and Preach their individual lives, but isn't the Preach nigga like married? He's like 40 years. He's like in his 40s, married. Like, what you mean? What's up with him? Like, he's married, gang. Does he have to post his wife? Like, I don't think his wife is a public figure. So why would he post his wife just so he can have opinions on the internet? You can have opinions on the internet for free, gang.
It ain't about me. It's about what I'm saying. Nah, nigga, it is kind of about you. We need to figure out how you and your wife giving it up. Nigga.
Why? I still don't get what my relationship with women has to do with my opinion. If I had to guess, it seems like you just want to weaponize my relationship to discount my opinion, which is not, in my opinion, not a good strategy, not a valid strategy. Right is right, wrong is wrong. Argue my points. Don't sit there and try to use at homonyms or bring my personal private relationship into the fray. Just because your public relationship can always be used as a weapon against you academics. Those are mistakes you made. You live with them. You like messing around with these little these clout chasers, these thoughts, because no other women without your clout would mess with you. You can't get a regular woman. The only reason women probably mess around with you is because of your money, and that type of stuff has gotten you in trouble. So now people have dirt on you, and now you want dirt on other people, so you can discount their opinions because your opinions get discounted. That's not how this works. I don't. It's not my fault that you sitting there want to mess with people like the Selena chick or the what was her name, Shy, whatever, that woman who sit there and threaten your mom. It's not my fault you want to mess with these women. These women who sit there and want to take a picture of you while you're sleeping because they're so clout thirsty. They want to sit there and take a picture of you while you're on soft to humiliate you. That's not my fault you want to mess with women like that, gang. Like, stop sitting here. Maybe if y'all live life more like how I live life, I want to date for love. So, I don't sit there and, get into these type of situations. I'm not sitting here. I haven't gotten anyone pregnant. I haven't had to sit there and take someone to go get an abortion. I haven't had to do no stuff like that. I don't have any type of, I haven't been in no toxic relationship like that. You know what? My life is better for it. So don't be mad at me. Be mad at yourself for decisions you have made. And you know what? I find it funny how he sits there and he wants people's relationship status or whatnot. Meanwhile, Akash, who was a virgin until he was in his early 30s, and then sat there and got with a woman who was in her early 20s, and then he finally lost his virginity or whatnot, and then he has the nerve to sit there and have opinions on a podcast about relationships and women, which you know what I have no problem with. I think you can be a virgin and have opinions on it. I think you can, not be in a relationship, never have been in a relationship or been in failed relationships and make valid points in regards to relationships. I rather argue the points and the merits of it. But if we're going to sit here and say this, Akash should have never been speaking on relationships to begin with. He had only ever been in one relationship in his 30 years of life.
You get what I'm saying? So I kind of look at this and I realize I'm like, man, I can't take everybody talking about this nigga if I've never seen everybody else's bitch. Because again, it's the same thing niggas was saying about Akash. They said Akash was talking about niggas, but we didn't see what's going on in his house.
No, Act. The criticism was that Akash and Andrew Schultz were trying to explain and criticize Fresh and Fit for their perception of women, just for their perception of women to be kind of true in regards to Akash's wife. Akash and Andrew were trying to sit there and tell Fresh and Fit that, they're just hanging around the wrong type of women and women really aren't like this, for Akash's wife to be exactly like that. It was ironic, and that's why people are clowning him, because of that Fresh and Fit interview where they were getting at Fresh and Fit. The issue is that their relationship and the stuff she was saying didn't stay private, Act. That's the issue. It should have stayed private. She shouldn't have said this stuff on the internet. That's the criticism. The criticism isn't that he had opinions on Fresh and Fit, but we didn't know how his wife was giving it up. That's not really the issue. The issue is that we now do know how she's giving it up, and it's ironic. It's funny, and they're clowning him.
We got to be honest. Like, if you don't see what's going on in the nigga house, you ever notice the commentators on YouTube that nobody knows about? They always lay on the right side of everything.
Yes, because most people want to be right. If I sit here, I'm commenting on the internet, I'm going to sit here and try to give the opinion that I think is right, regardless of how I'm living my life. Again, if I'm smoking coke, if I'm sitting here snorting cocaine, I'm not going to sit here and because I was snorting cocaine, I'm not going to get on the internet and sit there and say, snorting cocaine isn't that bad for you. I'm not going to sit here and gaslight you. Like, there's actually some really good benefits to snorting cocaine. It makes you happy. It's, it's fun. You get some euphoria. There are some other side effects that come with it. But hey, just ignore that. So I'm not going to get on the internet and do that. I'm going to try to be right, because that's all that really matters. Right is right, wrong is wrong.
Well, this is the moral, nigga. We don't know nothing about you. You don't even give us a chance to know nothing about you. So when you're talking, you basically get back to sit back, see the backlash, and make a video on YouTube just picking the side that people are going to love.
Yep. Cry about it. You used to do the same thing until people sat there and started exposing you on the internet, and now we know your private life and whatnot. Cry about it. I don't know what to tell you. What do you want me to do? What do you want anyone else to do? You want all of us to put our private business online? You want us to sit there and do a reality show on the internet so you can know everything about us and use it to discredit our opinions? I don't get the point you're trying to make.
We don't know if you into some fucked up shit.
Yo, okay, so you lead the charge. What I need you to do, stop going in incognito, bro. Sit there. I want you to leak your browser history. For the next month, don't sit there and go on no incognito mode. Do whatever you do. Leak your browser history. Don't try to sugarcoat it or nothing. Do what you would normally do. Leak that, and then we can have a conversation, bro. We need some full transparency if we're going to sit there and take your opinions seriously. Okay, we need to know everything about you now, since this is how you want to play it. We need to know 100% of how you give it up. Before you can sit there and call anyone else weird, we need to know everything about you. You understand how retarded you sound?
The biggest problem with this Akaash shit is not necessarily what the fuck he's doing, because I'm going to keep it a bean with you. The nigga do be looking happy. He don't be coming on the show looking like he unhappy. This is why I said we also should stay out of that nigga, what's that nigga name again? This is why I said we should stay out of his business. Because sometimes we think we taking up for a nigga. That nigga, only time that nigga ever looks sad is when we got at his bitch.
This is actually so dumb. Like, we're not in his business. He put his business out there. This nigga, this like sitting here and motherfuckers having an argument in public and they sit there and get mad at us for being in their business. Ain't nobody really cared that much about what he was doing.
Like, niggas be thinking you saving a nigga when a nigga, he's happy as fuck. Travis Hunter, that nigga is happy as fuck.
Nigga, Travis Hunter would sit there and for no reason whatsoever would do interviews with his wife. No one sit here and who is his wife? Why are you doing interviews with it wasn't even his wife at this point. I think they were married. He's sitting here doing interviews with his wife, sitting here talking about his relationship like we care, nigga. If you don't just sit there and get on the field, if you don't sit there and do your job, nigga, niggas is trying to watch the game. Niggas ain't trying to no one cares about your relationship or your wife or whatever. No one sit there and asks you to sit there and go to the public and present this type of stuff. People are going to, again, this is just natural of the internet. You post certain stuff on the internet, people are going to have opinions. Those opinions might be good. Those opinions might be bad. You can't be mad when people don't have the exact opinion you want them to have on the situation. I don't question that, Travis Hunter loves his wife. Obviously he does. I don't question that Akaash loves their wife. Do I think they were embarrassed about what was going on? Do I think that it affected them? Obviously it did, which is why people are saying you should keep your wife off the internet and why you shouldn't say certain stuff about your relationship on the internet. It's not rocket science. Academic solution for this is for everyone to sit there and get on the internet and put all their business out in the public, on the internet, on the internet streets.
So like, I always be like, yo, listen, sometimes these guys, whatever their situation is, even if it's cuckish or whatever you think, let them rock out, nigga. You get what I'm saying?
Bro, that's never going to happen. Get over it. I know you want people to let you rock for your certain situations, for your relationship with Selena Powell, your relationship with Shay Glizzy or whatever, and all these crazy stuff that you put up with and you let happen. I know you want people to let you slide. That's not how the internet works, gang. Get over it. That's not how the internet's not going to stop having opinions about stuff, especially like clown stuff, especially like stuff that's funny. It's not going to happen. The internet is going to meme about whatever. Bro, the internet has memed about the death of people. Like, you sitting here thinking that they're not going to meme about someone's relationship? Bro, keep it a buck, bro. You sound stupid. Okay, I've had enough of listening to academics. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I think we got the point across. I think he's got his point across. I think I've gotten my point across. I'm not going to sit here and react to the entire video. Later in the video, he does go on to admit that, he is saying a lot of what he's saying, and, he is holding back his punches and kind of defending Akaash because that's his friend. Some of y'all might respect that. I don't. If you want to sit here and be someone like academics who constantly gives his opinion, but you hold your punches, when it comes to someone who you're friends with? How am I supposed to take your opinion seriously? This is why I don't really watch academics like I used to. So after all this said and done, Akash and his wife would go on his podcast, the Flagrant Podcast, which is such a crazy thing to me. Imagine having to have your wife on your podcast to sit there and justify the crazy things she has said, the embarrassing things she has said about you, your relationship, in her past. To summarize the podcast, it's pretty much them trying to gaslight us. Keep it a buck. Is them trying to gaslight us to sit there and be like, okay, you guys think that Jocelyn is this college very promiscuous woman, when really she's so innocent that she didn't know what she was talking about. She sat there, said she was popping pussy. She just thought that meant like dancing on someone, shaking ass. She didn't think it. She didn't think it was like how literally anyone else would define popping pussy. Okay, fine, fine. She sit there. She said she was hooking up with men. In her mind, she's so innocent. Like in her mind, she just meant like she was making out with men. You know, because out of all the terms you could use to, say you were making out with men, you use the term hooking up. Okay, makes sense. She's so innocent that she sat there, went on Tinder, got a Tinder date, let the man from Tinder stay over, and nothing happened. That's just how innocent she is. Like, anyone with common sense knows that that's dumb. It's actually stupid. But I think maybe Akash actually buys this type of stuff. And who knows? Maybe she actually is a virgin. Maybe Trap Lord Ross has a point. She used the poop hole loophole, as he so eloquently called it. And so when they did do, he popped her, he popped her cherry, and that's how he knows that she's a virgin. But she really wasn't, you know, by all means really a virgin. So maybe that's the case, and that's why Akash seems so, he's believes everything she's saying. But no regular person would buy into this nonsense. No regular person sits there. No one who's on Tinder is probably not a virgin. They're probably not this person who is, this preserved, little innocent individual who grew up, very sheltered or whatnot, sexually sheltered or not. Like, everyone knows what Tinder's for. Like, come on, like Tinder's not even really like a dating, app or something. It's a hookup app. It's been that for like the beginning. Like, she tries to justify having Tinder by saying, they didn't have Hinge or all these other stuff, these other dating apps, even though they had other dating apps, but they didn't have like the main ones back then. But even still, like, everyone knows. Like, I don't know why women like sit there and try to act like people don't know what people use Tinder for. Like, even at the beginning, Tinder was always a hookup app. Like, that's what it was. Tinder was always like, had that reputation of like a dirty app, filled with dirty people who are just trying to hook up. Like, it's probably the main reason I've never used Tinder. My favorite one is when she sat there and said that when she said that she had a roster of men, she really was, referring to two guys that she was kind of talking to. I think the last point that people like to talk about is whether or not she's a gold digger. I don't really think this even really matters all that much, but I will argue that I think the YouTuber Poetic Flocko in his videos made a decent point when he says that their timeline as to why she's not a gold digger is kind of off. That they kind of sit there and insinuate that Akasha was this poor individual who they were sleeping on in the cold. They have really nothing. But when you really look at the timeline by their own admission, Akash was on MTV. He's on shows like Guy Code and whatnot. So he wasn't exactly this individual who was just like so, um, you know, down bad or whatever. He might not have been the most well off, but he was definitely making more than most people. They say if you get the timeline right, he might have been making like 60K a year, which is pretty much, it's like 10K, maybe 10 to 20K above the actual average of what men are making. But even if he wasn't making that, he was still on MTV. Even Akash's wife, Jocelyn, or whatever her name is, she said on the show that she said she felt she was a smart gold digger because she got in on the at the start. She saw the potential while he was on MTV and got in at the start, which wouldn't make her smart. That's what I think more women should do. They should find someone who is has potential and build them up. But I don't think she did a lot of building up. But she was smart. She got in at the beginning when she could get a good return on the investment. So I can't really be too mad at her. But when people sit there and say you can't really call her a gold digger, you definitely can. Like, the nigga did have, he was emotionless. Like, nigga had some emotion. We're sitting here acting like, there is an incentive to date a guy who's literally on shows on MTV, who has a career as a comedian. Like, he's not like some person who wasn't making any type of money off of comedy and had no type of connection or something. Like, he was doing his thing. All in all, to wrap all this up, because this video is mad long, and I think I said everything that I need to say. Uh, do I think that Akash needs to divorce his wife or whatever? No. Do I find their relationship kind of like, ideal? No. I think the most weird thing about Akash's relationship, because I don't really care too much about, all the crazy stuff she said, you know, prior to, I guess, being married to him or whatever, or all the crazy stuff she did when she was in college. I don't really care too much. I think it's funny to make fun of these people because, they're, their opinions on, a relationship and how smug they were about, calling out people, the red pill insults or whatever. But nonetheless, I do find it kind of funny, or problematic, the way she would turn away from him when you trying to kiss her, and her logic for that. That's the only thing I kind of find not ideal about their relationship, and why I would question how she truly feels about him. But other than that, do I think that I do think Akash loves her. I don't think he's going to divorce her due to the internet. Do I think does he feel embarrassed by this, and is this an ideal situation for him? Obviously not. He's probably just going to end up like Travis Hunter, where the relationship continues, and honestly, why shouldn't it? You're probably not going to divorce your wife because of what people on the internet say. At the end of the day, oh, he is a comedian. He can't get too mad about what people are saying online. Unfortunately, that's just how it goes.